sure everyone's been following all this in Minnesota with the Alex Pretti, the guy who was shot by ICE. It looks like the shooting was an accident, but he didn't help himself. He was aggressive with ICE. He took a firearm to a protest. I know in America they've got, is it the Second Amendment that allows them to carry firearms, whichever amendment that is, and he may have been carrying it legally, but it's not a clever move to carry anything that, legal or illegal, that could cause you to pose a threat at a protest. I've heard, I don't know how accurate this is, but I have heard that the particular firearm that he was carrying is known for discharging accidentally. So what it looks like happened is one of the ICE officers took his firearm from him, accidentally cocked it, and it went off, and then which causing other ICE officers to start shooting. So it looks like it was a tragic accident. But some footage has arisen of, I'm going to try and play it now, of him, an altercation he had with ICE officers a couple of weeks or just under a couple of weeks earlier. I'll try and play that now.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy.
It's not 100% clear whether that is Alex Pretti, but it does look a lot like it is. The clothing's similar. It looks like him. Someone's claimed that the BBC's verified that it's 97% likelihood that that is him. I don't know how true that is either. But even if it isn't him, it shows what some of these protesters are like, spitting at people, and all these left-wing activists that support them doing things like that. Like I said in another video the other day, if it was people spitting at railway workers or nurses or anyone, teachers, anyone from like a left-wing sort of union or something like that was getting spat at, they'd be up in arms about it. And it's terrible when it's happening to ICE officers, regardless of whether, basically, it wouldn't have happened if Alex Pretti had been behaving himself, if other protesters had been behaving themselves, it wouldn't have happened. If you turn up somewhere where there's armed officers, you're deliberately distracting them, assaulting them, whether that's physically or with sound, it's still assault to be blowing whistles right in people's ears. I'm not saying the guy deserved to die. He most probably didn't, but you increase the chances of it happening when you behave like that. Like I said, he probably had a permit for his firearm, but again, taking it along to a protest where there could be a confrontation isn't wise, although it is most probably legal in this case. And then also other things online. They've put a thing up here condemning George W. Bush, calling him a coward. It says, "Coward George W. Bush faces backlash as the only remaining former president to not condemn the fatal ICE shooting." I'm not a fan of George W. Bush. I didn't support the Iraq war or Afghanistan. I think he's going to have a lot to answer for when he meets his maker. But in this instance, he's right not to condemn it. It says the only surviving former president. Technically, Trump's a former president as well because he's serving a non-consecutive second term. He's got two different numbers as president. So the thing is, excluding Trump, George W. Bush is the only surviving Republican president. All the rest have been Democrats. So it's not as if other people from his party have been condemning it, although other people may have, but not presidents. So, and it's not as if there's 30 surviving presidents and he's the only one out of 30. I think there must be about 4 or 5 surviving. Who would be surviving? Clinton, Obama, Biden, Bush. Yeah, so out of 4 or 5, he's supposedly the only one who hasn't condemned it. Like I said in my other video I put out the other day, people shouldn't rush to condemn things or to support things or anything like that. There's most likely, there'd be an investigation going on into the shooting. I know in Britain with the Met Police, if an officer shoots somebody, they're immediately removed from frontline duty. It drags on for like a year or so, no matter how clear cut it was. Things probably aren't as strict as that in America, but I'd imagine there'd be some sort of investigation going on, and it'd be irresponsible for people to be condemning them for it. I've praised them for their general work and duty, and said that it's a difficult job to be doing. If somebody has deliberately murdered somebody, which, to be fair, I doubt, but if they have done that, they should face charges and they should be in trouble for it. But I don't think anyone, either a former president or anyone else, should be condemning them for that. And it just goes to show how they jump on bandwagons, Obama. And that's the funny thing as well. The way that the Biden left office, and they're mentioning that he's condemned it. It's like, did he condemn it, or did the auto pen condemn it? Is not. This is the same person that claimed to have seen videos of babies having their throats cut in hospitals in Israel that didn't happen. The official death toll given by Israel themselves said that only one child under the age of 1 died on that day. It's still a tragedy, just one child dying, but only one child under the age of 1 died, and they were shot from behind a door. So whoever shot them didn't actually see them when they shot them, and probably didn't realise they were shooting a young child. But Biden claimed to have seen a video from a maternity ward of babies having their throats cut, or photographs of babies who'd had their throats cut. The guy, I'm not even going to condemn him for that, because he was probably at that stage with his mental health. He probably had no idea what he was looking at, and was completely confused. So for news outlets to be quoting Biden that he's condemned it, when, like I said, he condemned the murder of babies that didn't even happen, that's a complete and utter joke to be saying that. So basically, Obama and Clinton have condemned it. Biden or his auto pen condemned it, and Bush hasn't. So it's completely stupid like that. Like I said, I think George Bush is a complete and utter scumbag, but I will defend him on this occasion. He's 100% right not to condemn it. 100%, it was an accident, but he did cause it. Yep, that's exactly what I believe. Sometimes with these stories, there is a weird twist to it somewhere along the line. It turns out not to be that. So like I said, we can't really say 100%, but it does 98, 99% look like that. I can't imagine that an ICE agent went out to be fair, I would have thought if they deliberately intended to kill him, they would have done it the previous time, a couple of weeks before, when he was spitting at them. Yeah, so like I said, it's probably the only time I've ever defended George W. Bush, and it'll probably be the last time. I meant to mention the other week, because I did a YouTube poll a couple of weeks ago, because you often hear the far left talking about, I'm not even sure if it's still running, this poll, but you often hear the far left talking about how Brexit's ruined the economy and messed the country up, and how we're all idiots or fascists or whoever we are for voting for it. But I did a poll because I personally believe it was deliberately sabotaged. So I did a poll saying, who is responsible for the current economic problems in the UK? Answer 1, the people who voted for Brexit. Answer 2, the MPs who voted no deal off the table. And that was 5% of people disagreed with me and said it was the people who voted for Brexit. And 95% of people agreed with me. And that was out of 221 people. It's not the largest poll going. And obviously it was people that watch my YouTube channel. So I would have thought that on most topics, most people agree with me on most things. So you would expect it to be like that. But I thought I'd do the poll anyway, just to show that what a ridiculous sort of point of view it is, that blaming people for voting Brexit, or even blaming people for supporting Brexit. And I'm not a fan of Farage or Boris Johnson or anyone like that. And to be fair, I think with Boris Johnson, I think he was very weak around the Brexit campaign. He was the official leader of the Vote Leave. And I think the official campaign was rubbish. I think Remain had a better campaign than Leave did. It was only the fact that people have wanted out of the EU for years. Loads of people supported leaving the EU, and grassroots campaigns. Obviously, the National Front one was fairly small, so we can't take too much credit for it. But I'm sure we helped along with other grassroots activists. But to try and accuse people of mis-selling it, I think what most people were saying is that with control of our country and our borders back in our own hands, we can make a great success of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that the traitors running the country will make a great success of it, but the opportunity was there for them to do that. So far, they've failed to do that. That's why they need removing from office and will be being removed from office. The only problem is that Nigel Farage and Reform aren't going to be much better. It's going to be a fag paper between them, really. But at least they're going to get punished for it. It's not really the way to do politics. It's not really what we should be aiming for. But it's a small concession that those people will be out. Also, a lot of people on the right of politics tend to blame the Labour Party for everything. Obviously, the Tories were in power for that time. But I think in this case, the Labour Party were very much to blame for it, because it was them that campaigned to take no deal off the table, along with the left or the pro-EU part of the Conservative Party. So while I don't support Boris Johnson or Theresa May, I feel that they did have their hands tied to some degree by the traitors in their own party and also the Labour Party. It feels like this week I'm sort of sticking up for people I wouldn't normally stick up for, but I like to tell the truth on my channel. I like to try and keep things real, so I will defend them on that little bit. And it was mainly the Labour Party and the left of the Conservative Party, or the pro-EU part of the Conservative Party, that were responsible for the problems surrounding the Brexit deal. A lot of people have pointed this out, but if you want to go and buy a car or a house or a business or anything that costs a lot of money, and you walk into the negotiations and you say, right, I'm going to buy it, whatever deal I'm offered, there's no incentive for them to offer you a decent deal going for a job or anything like that. If you turn up for a job interview and say, I'm desperate for this job, please give it to me, I'll take whatever conditions and money you're offering, you're going to get shit conditions and money. So it was deliberately sabotaged, and the people that did that were traitors. And in my opinion, they should be held accountable for it by legal means, that is. Socially anxious scientist who sued because she was not invited to Christmas party loses claim. Obviously, a socially anxious scientist who claimed disability discrimination after she was not invited to her work Christmas has lost her claim. Ecologist Shelby Kaufman sued Echoes Ecology after she was deliberately not invited to a small festive gathering while off sick with anxiety. I won't read the whole story, but this young lady, I think she's been off sick for close to a year. She had a sick note saying that she was able to start coming back to work slowly, but needed to be excluded from meetings and social gatherings. She was meant to be like socially unprepared or whatever. And so basically they didn't invite her because they thought that she wouldn't want to go. And then she sued them. Surely before you sue someone, you might just say to them, well, hang on a minute, why wasn't I invited? And then get an explanation saying, we didn't think you'd want to come. And then you could say, oh, well, I might have wanted to come. You should have asked. And that should be the end of it. But instead, or as well as, she's landed up suing them. And fortunately enough, in this case, she lost the case. But how much must her employer have spent defending the case? I think it's highly unlikely. I don't know if she was awarded, if the firm was awarded costs or anything like that. But did anyone get in trouble for not inviting her? And all that ridiculous things. And that's what makes the UK, to some degree Europe and America as well, but more so the UK, uncompetitive. If you want to run a business in the United Kingdom, you've got to deal with things like this. Someone not getting invited to a Christmas party, somebody who's supposedly been racially abused. Because a lot of these racially abuse cases, it's only banter. They say racism is never banter. It's usually banter. Most of these people who sue their employers, they sue them over banter. They're friendly with someone. They tell people their name's Chalky when you first meet them. They seem to be one of the better ones. Everyone's having a laugh, and then they get in trouble or fired for thieving or consistently being late or being a useless worker or a bad attitude. And then all of a sudden they play the race card. And people that thought they were friends with them are all of a sudden in trouble for calling them by a nickname and joking about and playing basketball or something, and and it's a complete and utter joke. But if someone wants to, if either an international firm wants to set up an office or a factory or something like that in the UK, or even somebody wants to start a medium-sized firm in the UK, you've got to allow hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds, to be sued for things. Whether somebody wins or whether they lose, it's still going to cost you money. You're still going to have to prepare for it. You're still going to have to run countermeasures to try not to get sued for it. And between like racial discrimination, disability discrimination, and sexual harassment or discrimination, it creates a sterile environment in the workplace where you're sort of scared. People are scared to even talk to people in case they're accused of something. You just go for drinks and you invite a few people, don't invite somebody else, and all of a sudden that's a discrimination case or something like that. I think all of this legislation needs throwing out. You need some sort of legislation, but with ridiculous cases like that, there needs to be efforts to be done to stop people from bringing them in the first place, or for there to be consequences for people who bring cases like this. There's been cases in the newspapers years ago of people who've made a career out of suing people, because although a lot of the cases aren't successful, what you need to remember is a lot of employers settle out of court to save the embarrassment, because even if they win a case, a lot of the time it's bad publicity whether they win it or not. Biden's press office condemned it. That didn't even know what day it was, because again that was meant to be a conspiracy theory, wasn't it? That he wasn't going to run for president again, and that he was signing things with an auto pen, and then all of a sudden that got proved to be true. Has anyone got any cases of where people have sued someone over some ridiculous thing with discrimination? Do you remember the cricket player for Yorkshire? He supposedly suffered years of racial abuse for being, I don't know if he was of Pakistani or Indian heritage, but he supposedly suffered years of abuse from that. He left to go and play somewhere else, and then came back again. I'm sure that if he had really suffered the first time, he wouldn't have gone back. He wouldn't have gone back the second time. The claim was just to, in my opinion, just to make money. I can understand people on low wages being stuck in a job and having to put up with poor working conditions, but I can't see how like professional athletes who might not quite get the same money somewhere else, but even if they lost 10% or 20% of their wages by playing for someone who doesn't pay as well, would still be earning a lot more money than the most ordinary people. Evening all. Tomorrow marks 10 years since the Dover demo against immigration. So many lads endured jail time. Yet how can anyone not say we were justified to defend ourselves against the left? Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, that's the problem, really, when you've got the Kent police assuring Tory MPs that they're going to crack down on us. Like, you could understand them saying they're going to crack down on any violence, but they specifically said they were going to crack down on what they called far right or Nazi or whatever they call it, violence. And then obviously the left always cover their faces. And another thing as well is they get better. Like legal advice and cover and things like that. They tend to do jobs where that they're not going to get in any trouble for going to protests and things like that. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting, some of the sentences that people received. In fact, that's another point. I was looking up with the Alex Pretti video and the summer riots or summer, whatever it was called, right, whether it's riots or disturbances of 2024, because out of all the people that were charged with violence at that protest, 42 of them were charged with assaulting emergency workers, being the police in that case. And where I don't agree with people assaulting the police, obviously in some cases people are just defending themselves, but in general I don't agree with people assaulting the police. But this Alex Pretti, who got shot in America, the video that appeared to show him assaulting the police, whether it was him or not, and then also the actual video where he was shot, sorry, not the police, ICE, emergency workers anyway. But he was definitely being confrontational with the police, and the guy that looks like him in the other video, that probably is him, was seen spitting at the police. And the far left, like I said before, if you was to spit at a nurse or a train worker or anything like that, they'd condemn you for it, any of their unionised jobs. But when people are blowing whistles in the ears of and spitting at ICE officers, they see that as perfectly fine. Yeah, it's hard to think that Dover protest was 10 years ago tomorrow. I think that's the one I wasn't on. I went. The London Forum was the same day. I was at the London Forum that day. I've been to the previous Dover demos. I think the one that Richard Edmonds spoke at was the September 2015, and then obviously this one's the one that was the following January. I have a friend in court tomorrow. 11 charges for posting online. Absolutely ridiculous. He's a 62-year-old man. Yeah, and it's disgusting the way it works. The way it only seems to work one way. I'm not a big fan of Lucy Connolly. I think a lot of what she said stupid anyway. I don't think she's particularly intelligent or anything like that. But it was terrible that she got sent to prison the way she did over her comments online, especially when she said, "For all I care, burn the place down." She didn't actually say, "I want people to burn the place down." And she was jailed for that. And then Nick Lowell's got away with his comments about a Muslim woman having acid thrown at her outside of a car, which turned out to be completely untrue. And again, I put a video out the other day, but Nick Lowell's is back at it again. Was it just 2 days ago? When Alex Pretti got shot in Minnesota, Nick Lowell's was saying that he was murdered. Again, that's prejudicial, so people shouldn't be commenting about that. And Hope Not Hate is supposedly registered as a charity in the United States. I'm not sure whether, or trying to be registered as a charity in the United States. And to be accusing law enforcement officers, whether they're ICE or someone else, of murdering someone when it looks very unlikely that was the case. Like I said, we don't know all the facts yet. It could be the case, but it looks 99% sure that wasn't the case. And the most logical explanation for what happened to him was a tragic accident. But the situation's already inflamed. In fact, I would say that it's more than 10 times more inflamed, the situation in parts of America, mainly Minnesota at the moment, than it was in the summer of 2024 when people were rioting over here. So people were getting jailed for inciting an inflamed situation in Britain. And in my opinion, Nick Lowell should be taken to court and should really be well, you probably shouldn't get jailed for things like that anyway, but because other people have, then in order for things to be equal, then he should as well. I think we've gotten it just under 2 weeks until Hope Not Hate's in-house paedophile is getting sentenced on the 10th of February at, is it Islington Magistrates Court? It's in Islington anyway, whatever it's called, the Magistrates Court. So I'll be popping along to that to see what the judge's sentencing remarks are, and also to try and film him either on the way in or on the way out of court, because he's almost definitely going to get a non-custodial, being far left and a Zionist on top of that, and also the fact that he didn't physically touch any kids, he was just trying to. He'll probably get a non-custodial, I would have thought. But like I said, I'll be along there to report on it and to hopefully film him either going in or out of the court. Be nice to catch Nick Lowell's or Matthew Collins or someone there, but like we said before, it's very unlikely that they'd turn up for something like that. He's been on bail over a year, banned from going online for over a year. See, sometimes the process is the punishment, isn't it? It's they drag them out. There's backlogs anyway, but whether it's done deliberately or whether it's just the way it is, the cases get dragged out, and then people are under bail conditions for lengthy amounts of time. When, like, some of the people from the summer riots 2024 pleaded guilty, I believe, I watched an interesting video on that. Is it Alan Robert Shaw, one of those barristers who does the videos, and he was saying that sometimes if you're refused bail and you've got like 2 years to wait for a trial, even if you're only looking to get 2 years or even less at the at the hearing, if found guilty, you could land up spending all of that on remand, and then even if you're found not guilty, you still don't get any compensation for. It doesn't count as being unlawfully imprisoned. If people give if you're found guilty because of people giving false information or whatever in court, like law enforcement, then you can get compensation. But generally, if you spend a year or two on remand and then are found not guilty, you don't get that back. So with the discount that you're given for an early guilty plea, a lot of innocent people, whether it's for political activity, rioting, or anything else, a lot of people are encouraged to plead guilty even though they're innocent, because you'll end up doing less prison time than you would do even if you're found not guilty. It's a complete and utter state that the country's in at the moment, especially when they're talking about doing away with juries trials. And also David Lammy spoke about allowing, I assume he's mainly talking about black youths, but allowing people that have got youth criminal records to have them expunged. But in order to do that, you'd have to appear in, I can't remember if he said judge or magistrate, but appear in court for probably only be a short hearing to try and get them expunged from criminal records. But youth criminal records are only on, I always forget the name of it, the extensive search for people that are working with kids. If you go for a normal job and they want a CIB check, it wouldn't show up on that anyway. So, and also in order to get a criminal record as a youth, it needs whatever crime you've committed needs to be a lot more serious than what would get an adult a criminal record. So they got plenty of time for this, that, and the other with courts and messing people around and charging people with silly offences. I remember, let's go back some now. I think it was 16 years ago now. 15 years ago. A friend of mine was up on a supposedly homophobic hate crime, and I was his witness that he was innocent. And I went along to the court, and at the end of the proceeding, the prosecution barrister didn't even bother summing up. My friend had been arrested. He'd had to do numerous interviews with. I think he was held in the police station overnight. Fortunately enough, he wasn't remanded, but he landed up having to get a barrister, go to court. He's faced a possible prison sentence for nothing. And at the end of the day, there was no case to answer. Yet I think the police didn't actually want to charge him, but because a hate crime of muttering something under your breath or saying something to someone is so serious that it has to be given to the CPS to decide whether to charge someone. So he got messed around with all that. And like I said, fortunately enough, he was found not guilty, and I believe he had his legal costs paid by the taxpayer, but he didn't have to pay it out of his own pocket. But all that messing around just for nothing, and they're bringing all these charges against people for like race-related things and this, that, and the other, when they should be clearing up the backlog. They should be taking all the serious criminals to court, getting them sent to prison for lengthy sentences, and just leaving ordinary people who've either done nothing wrong or just done something silly in a rash moment. The same as with that Ricky Jones getting off. I say getting off, obviously he was found not guilty, but I believe he used in his defence a fabricated story about razor blades being left on a train. I can't find any proof of it. I've emailed the police about it. They don't seem to know anything about it. I've checked all the newspaper articles. They haven't, even the actual unions haven't produced any photographs of these razor blades that were left on trains. So the guy obviously made it up and then called for people to have their throats cut, and then due to the fact that he's got little or no influence, he was found not guilty. But the organisation that he was representing and speaking at through a megaphone, he wasn't just a loudmouth talking rubbish at a demo. He was actually speaking over a megaphone and applauded by everyone afterwards. That was for Stand Up to Racism, who are an openly violent organisation. I put a video up, I think it was yesterday, with Wayman Bennett, it would have been Tuesday. He was speaking at a protest in London, and he was calling for special forces to abduct Donald Trump and put him in jail. Obviously, they're not going to do that. Even if we wanted to, I don't think they'd be able to. But the fact that people that support the IRA, that sing Kneecap, Get Your Brits Out, right near the cenotaph, whose president, I believe Diane Abbott's still their president, has supported the IRA, who's said that most black people in London supported the IRA back in the 70s or 80s, whenever she was talking about. And I obviously don't know whether that's true or not. It's probably not true, but she still said it. So it's an organisation where, although the actual organisation doesn't openly support the IRA, a lot of their members and supporters do, but yet they'd be willing to commit our special forces to a military engagement and things like that. But some of the things he was bragging about, supposedly attacking the National Front, I believe he's probably talking about things like Lewisham and such, where it was mainly the police that were attacked, although some of our people were attacked, but they were mainly attacking the police. And again, all of these far left people, specifically Stand Up to Racism, they celebrate the police being attacked at Cable Street, the police being attacked at Lewisham, the police being attacked at Southall. And he was condemning as well, I believe he was talking about UKIP. I'm not a supporter of UKIP. I can't stand that Nick Tenconi. But if someone wants to have a protest somewhere, then they've got a right to do that officially by British law. And Wayman Bennett was bragging about getting UKIP's protests cancelled, but then going on about how they support people's right to protest in Iran and they support people's right to protest in America. Although we're speaking about America, it sounds like he's supporting their right to attack law enforcement officers as opposed to their right to protest. But then when someone wants to have a protest here, they oppose them. Now, fair enough, people have got a right to different opinions. If whether it's the National Front or UKIP or anyone, if we hold a protest and people disagree with us, they've got every right to hold a protest either the next day or a different part of town and say, hang on a minute, I disagree with this, that and the other, that what they've said, I think you'll find that this, that and the other is the truth, or whatever like that. Or like I said, I've always been willing to debate anyone. I'll debate anyone. I'd love to debate Wayman Bennett. In fact, I'll have to arrange a little meeting with him at some stage in the near future, and we'll have a bit of a debate if he's capable of one. I think all he's capable of is foaming at the mouth. In fact, I'm trying to think when this was now. This would have been Kev Bryan was still the chairman of the National Front, and we had a protest up in, I'm going to say Wakefield, but I'm not 100% sure of that. After the protest, I think we had a couple of drinks in a pub, and then a few of us, I think myself and Richard Edmonds, went to get the train back to London, and a few others, Kev Bryan and a couple of others, came with us just to see that we got to the train station all right. We saw Wayman Bennett and a couple of his cronies sat at the train station, and we just laughed at them. I wasn't actually filming at the time. I wish I should have been, really, but I think we was sort of in a rush to get our train. But we just sort of laughed at them. He didn't want to fight then. I think they only want to fight when they're stood across opposite with a load of police in between us. Same with Paul Sillett, one of their other Muppets. The amount of times I've seen him on protest, literally screaming in police officers' faces because we're stood the other side of them, being so obnoxious and aggressive. And then when you see them face to face, and there's no police there at all, or only a few police, and they're not in between us, all they do is whinge. All they do is they want to cry and whinge. But when the police are put in between us, all of a sudden they're all aggressive. And I'm not hypocritical for saying this, because although I don't steam into them when I see them and the police aren't there, I'm not trying to be aggressive the other side of the police when they are there. Obviously, I shout a few comments across at them, but I'm not challenging them to a fight. But if you watch the video that I put up the other day, or on Stand Up to Racism's Twitter feed or X feed, they've got the full length video that I took snippets from. It sounds like Wayman Bennett wants to fight everyone, and I'm sure, probably like Mr. Bump, I'm sure if he actually did come across anyone, it'd be a completely unprovoked attack. Does everyone remember Mr. Bump? Steve Headley. He was the deputy leader of the RMT at the time, and he went up London. There was I can't even remember who was. It might have been a Tommy Robinson protest, or it might have been a DFLA one. I'm not sure what the protest was, but he went up there in the morning, and he had a megaphone, and he was stood there with all his communist cronies, and he's going, we're going to batter them. It's up to whenever fascists raise their heads, it's up to the organised working class to batter them back down again. And then by the afternoon, he had a blue T-shirt, a white bandage, hence the name Mr. Bump, with blood trickling down his face. And it was a completely unprovoked attack. What are the chances? What are the chances of that? That's because Shaz has just commented that I can do the Irish accent better than she can, but and she's been here for years. But that was my one was more of a Republican accent, so that's why. But that's literally what are the chances of that, getting attacked in a completely unprovoked attack by the same people that you were planning to batter that morning? But it's the mentality of these people. They support people assaulting the police and blowing whistles in their faces and spitting at them. I say the police, I mean ICE, but there's still law enforcement. They support all that, but then as soon as something happens to them, then they want the police to come down like a ton of bricks on anyone else. Yeah, legal fees alone will cost a fortune. Yeah, like I said, I think that's usually only when you're found guilty. Although sometimes I think even if you're found not guilty, if you spent more than what's considered reasonable, you can still have to pay some of that. But like I was saying earlier, it's like for some people, you land up, even if you're found not guilty, doing more time than you would have got if you, obviously not for things like murder, but for something where you're looking to be set for a sentence of 1 or 2 years, you can land up doing more by going on remand and then getting found not guilty than if you'd actually pleaded guilty in the first place. Because there's another thing as well, where the punishment is the process, is because they're meant to favour on the side of giving people parole. You should, as a standard, be given parole, with the exceptions being if you're a flight risk, if you're liable to affect the proceedings by intimidating witnesses or anything like that, or if you're a danger to yourself or others. So ordinarily, most people should get bail. Obviously, for really serious crimes where there's a likelihood of reoffending, it makes sense not to give people bail. But people that have just got a bit out, either haven't done anything wrong or may have possibly got a bit out of hand at the heat of the moment, it makes more sense to give them bail. But I personally believe, and I'm sure a lot of other people will agree with me, that in a lot of cases they deliberately withhold bail as a form of punishment. And the same as when people are bailed but given terrible bail conditions, like not being allowed online. I think that's probably something that needs updating anyway, because probably when rules like that first started getting introduced, and that the internet wasn't as big a part of people's lives. But nowadays, it must be almost impossible to function without going online. I don't know, if someone's married, they might be able to get their partner to do a lot of the online stuff for them. I'm in Northern Ireland at the moment, but when I'm in London, if you want to go to a museum, even if you're already just round the corner from the museum, it still makes sense to go on your phone and book a ticket for the museum to get in there half an hour faster and things like that. So there's so many things, especially like when you had the lockdown. I was having to go and stand outside Screwfix on my phone ordering something, and then they'd sort of bring it to the door for you and things like that. So it must be almost impossible to, I apologise, I'm exaggerating there. It's not almost impossible to survive without using the internet, but it's a major inconvenience. Yeah, I can understand if someone's, I'm not sure the details of John's mate here, but if someone's accused of threatening someone or something like that, I can understand part of the bail conditions being not to contact that particular person, or not to contact anyone that you're not already friends with or follows you or something like that. But not to be able to go online is an absolute, like I said, it's a punishment in itself, and the reason for doing it is to punish people, not for any sort of public safety thing or anything like that. And in fact, even if someone was accused of threatening someone, and then they went back online and threatened them, then that would be more evidence against them. So from a legal point of view, it would make sense just to let them go online and then just gather more evidence if there was any. I'm saying if someone has done something. I'm not suggesting for a minute that's the case in in John's friend's case, but if somebody actually has been committing crimes. I can understand when someone's a paedophile, not letting them go online, because obviously they are a threat to children and things like that, and if there is compelling evidence against them. But if someone's just in trouble for commenting online, again, this isn't from a politically biased point of view. I'm not just talking about our people. I'm talking about with the far left or anyone. If they're only accused of making offensive comments or something like that, they shouldn't be stopped from going online. And you would have thought that the fact that there's ongoing proceedings, if somebody had done something wrong, they'd be less likely to do it in the near future, because they would have had the wind put up them. But yeah, because it's the same old story, how everyone's racist chants and pounced on it. Yeah, I assume that's about the discrimination cases in where people are taking their employers to court. Like I said, if I don't do the lottery, but if I won £50 million or £100 million or something, like I said, I'm not going to, because I don't do the lottery or any gambling really. But if someone gave me millions of pounds, I wouldn't set up a business in the UK at the moment, as the law currently stands, especially in my position as chairman of the National Front. I know that people are just going to be applying for jobs just to sue me. But even if I wasn't, if I was politically unknown, I wouldn't set up a business in the UK, because it's just, or a business that employed people. I might set up some sort of business, but not one where people are applying for jobs, because you're just going to get sued. You don't give someone a job, you get sued. You give them a job and they don't like it, you get sued, and things like that. And it with racism and all these other isms, it tends to be a case of guilty until proven innocent. If someone thinks you've stolen something or murdered someone or something like that, it's up to them, the police or whoever's accusing you, it's up to them to prove that you've done it. It's not a matter of, I think you've done something, prove your innocence. But then with racism, it is. And all these other isms, sexism, homophobia, all these other things, you've got to allow, I think firms have insurance for getting sued. But again, once you get sued, that insurance will probably go up. And things like that, and that's why we're uncompetitive. You don't think people in India, this lady who didn't get invited to the Christmas party because she was suffering from stress and had been off work, sick, this, that, and the other. You don't think if she was in India, you don't think she'd get away with suing them? If she was in China, she wouldn't get away with suing them. I would have thought in both India and China, if people just didn't like her, they just wouldn't invite her to it wouldn't be Christmas party, but Diwali party or Chinese New Year or whatever they have. They just wouldn't invite her, and she wouldn't be able to sue them. Again, I think that's probably going too far with China. Some of the working conditions can be terrible there, but it's a lot more competitive for running a company. A, you've got the low wages, and B, you're not just going to get maliciously sued for something. Yeah, that's it. And a lot of good lads over Dover. Yep, that's definitely true. Yes, this I assume talking about Dover as well. This is Shaz. Yes, Max saw it was marked today by our lot. You can contract diseases from being spat at. Yep. Again, that's another thing. Like TB was eradicated years ago, and now it's coming back. It's bad. I find it disgusting when I see people spitting in the street, but let alone to actually be spitting at people. I'm behind here with the comments at the moment, but so I don't know if Max actually said anything about this. He was spat at on a protest. I think that was 2017 in Croydon. We was protesting outside Luna House, and some woman looks a bit like a school teacher. I don't know if she was or not, but she spat at Mac, and I got it on film. We don't know what happened when she went to court because the police wouldn't inform anyone. I contacted the police to let them know I had video evidence, but they told me they already had enough evidence anyway, so didn't need my video evidence. But she was probably let off. I don't know that for a fact, but there's a good chance of that. Max also put up here, Mandy says it wasn't just blokes jailed as a result of Dover. And yeah, and I think that was absolutely disgusting what happened to Mandy. They're a disgrace. I hate the left, but still wouldn't spit at anyone. Just shows there a lack of hygiene and class, to be honest. It's an absolute disgrace. It's quite windy. We've got the tail end of a storm out in Northern Ireland, but I always used to find it quite amusing when I lived in Fulham. If you went out and it was windy, and you'd see lots of the new arrivals spitting on themselves. So we're walking down the road spitting, and it'll end up blowing back on them. I must have seen that hundreds, if not thousands, of times. But yeah, it wasn't just blokes jailed for Dover. I'm starting to think there's a two-tier justice system. Yeah, there definitely is that. Yeah, and again, that's one of the reasons why I'm popping along to the nonce getting sent down, or paedophile, should I call him? I shouldn't really abbreviate things like that. But that Liron Velleman from Hope Not Hate is just under 2 weeks. He'll be getting sentenced in North London at a magistrate's court. So I'm going to pop along there just to see what I believe to be a two-tier justice system. Like I said, if any of our people get done for anything, being supposedly right-wing or racist or whatever they say, is seen as an aggravating factor. But somebody who's left-wing, who works for an organisation, a criminal organisation like Hope Not Hate, and the Jewish labour movement and things like that, often it's seen as a mitigating factor. So was it Lord Mohammed? There's more than one Lord Mohammed, but one of the Lord Mohammeds got let off going to prison because of all the work he does in the Muslim community. But again, somebody on our side of the argument or our side of politics wouldn't be let off because of all the hard work we do. They wouldn't, if I got done for something, they wouldn't say, oh, because you spend hundreds of hours a year or thousands of hours a year volunteering for the National Front and have risked your physical well-being and jobs and things like that, we're going to suspend your sentence or anything like that. They're not. They're going to come down harder than they would an ordinary person, and everyone knows that. Same as I've got a video up from probably about a year and a half ago. I was stood outside Parliament again with Stand Up to Racism, and there was that Lewis Nielsen, and they were literally screaming in my ear with a megaphone, which really is assault. They should have got done for that. They're making threats. Again, they should have been done for that. There's a police officer stood right with us at the time, some silly little girl policewoman, and she stood there, didn't see anything wrong with them screaming in my ear with a megaphone. Didn't see anything wrong with them. They weren't really hitting me hard with placards, but sort of hitting me a little bit with the placards. Didn't see anything wrong with that. Making threats, didn't see anything wrong with that. Bragging about previous violence, didn't see anything wrong with that. And then when they asked me about my views on the Holocaust, and at first I wouldn't tell them, but they pressed me on it. So I was quite moderate with what I said about it. And then she quickly went running off to her superior to see if I could be arrested for Holocaust revisionism or something that isn't even a crime in Britain, but they sort of tend to find their ways around it. And things that just highlight the double standards and two-tier police. I don't know how anyone can realistically deny it, but that's what they do. If you get the ankle bracelet curfew, though, they are brilliant in my book. I'm not a drinker anyway, so don't care if I'm home early. Every 2 days on tag equals 1 day on remand. Yeah, I suppose it depends what sort of hours they are, because I think some of them, you're meant to be indoors from about 7 o'clock or something like that. Again, I just popped out, not for a drink, but I had to pick up something for my missus, and I popped out just before coming on this live stream, and I got back about 7:15. But I probably wouldn't have been able to do that, or would have risked being arrested for it if I'd been on an ankle tag. I don't go out drinking of evenings much, but even just going out filming something, or if there's a protest on or something like that, it's still a major inconvenience. But again, I'll sooner do 2 days of that than 1 day on remand, or sooner do 100 days of that than 50 days on remand. But yeah, so it is probably a better thing. Yeah, that's what I always forget. I believe you corrected me on that before. Yeah, the enhanced DBS checks. Yeah, that's when I was talking about the young offenders getting their records revoked. Anyone going to Warwick? I'm going to Warwick. I'll be there. Hopefully do some filming while I'm there. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be flying back to London soon. I'll go to the Warwick protest, and then a few days after that is the Hope Not Hate paedophilia sentencing. So I'll be there for that as well. So yeah, I'll definitely be going to Warwick. A few other National Front lads are going along as well, so it'd be good to catch up with them and to meet a few other people as well. So that should be great. Yeah, Stand Up to Racism, like most of the far left, extremely violent. Yep. To be fair, I don't think they're as violent as they used to be, but the way they openly brag about the violence, you just couldn't do that. Like I've said before, if we produced a video, if I was to say in this video about like smashing people up and this, that, and the other, and suppressing people's freedom of speech, I'd get done for it. Even if it turned out that the bragging had been fabricated or something like that, it'd still be seen as encouraging violence or whatever like that. But they always get away with it. I'd like to go. I've no transport though. I don't even know where it is, to be honest. Rick. It's not far from Birmingham. I don't think I haven't actually booked my train ticket yet, but I would have thought I'd be going to Birmingham and then out of Birmingham to go there. In fact, there might be a train directly there from London. I'm not sure, but Alton Shaz has put up that I'm going yet. So remember your video with Lowe's? He was like a mouse the entire video until he got among his cronies and the cops. He was trying to incite the crowd to attack you. Oh, that was hilarious. And the funny thing as well was Tommy Robinson did a video about it as well afterwards, complaining that the police didn't remove me when Nick Lowe's asked. Supposedly, he's not supposed to be on the same side as Nick Lowe's, so you would have thought, whether he agrees with my position or not, he'd like the fact that the police didn't do what Nick Lowe's told them. But he seemed more upset that I'd been allowed to stay there, although I wasn't allowed to stay there for that. I was asked to move pretty soon after that anyway, but then he was after he was arrested after refusing to leave for about an hour. Although I'm pretty sure that was a staged arrest anyway. It looks to me like he, because it was at the same event, there was a campaign against anti-Semitism, which is an organisation that I think works with Hope Not Hate in the past. Tommy Robinson was there to support their protest, although they didn't want him there, apparently, and he ended up being arrested for refusing to leave. And I didn't actually go on the protest. I just went to see who I could film arriving. I was hoping to get someone from Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, but I hit the jackpot by bumping into Nick Lowe's. And I didn't actually go into the area where they were protesting. I walked off and then still got sort of asked to leave by the police. But it seemed to me with that Campaign Against Anti-Semitism have been complaining that there's loads of people supporting, there's loads of extremists on the Palestinian protests, but if any extremists turn up to support their event, they get told to leave. I've never seen anything online, any videos of anyone who's turned up to support their event getting forced to leave. They shouted at me at one of them, but I wasn't there to support their protest, so you can't really count that. And it seems so convenient that after saying that with no evidence to back it up several times on, I don't know if it's TV or just internet videos, then Tommy Robinson turns up there to get arrested. They said in advance they didn't want him going, and he turned up. This is probably getting on for 2 years ago now, so it's well in the past, but that just smelt of a rat, the fact that he even turned up. Then the fact that the police gave him so many chances to leave and he didn't before getting arrested. And then the fact that he got off. He was found not guilty, I think, because I think a police officer put the wrong date on a form or something. It was there was something really silly like that why he was found not guilty. Mac's Mrs. Mandy, she attended court not as a suspect or a victim or witness or anything, but just to give support to some of the lads that were getting tried over Dover. And not in the actual courtroom, but I think it was a corridor. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Mac. I think it was in a corridor or something just outside the courtroom. And somebody asked her to take a photograph and passed her their phone. And Mandy took a photograph. Technically, it is illegal, but where she took the photograph, there was no legal proceedings going on. And all the people in the photograph posed for the photograph. There was nobody, no witnesses or victims or suspects or anything like that, defendants, should I say. There was nobody like that who didn't want to be in the photograph. It was just people that she was there with who wanted to be in the photograph, who she took a photograph of. And she got jailed for it. And I've seen other cases. There was a footballer who actually took a photograph in the courtroom, not that of this case, but a different case, while the proceedings were going on. And got a fine for it. And there's been various other cases of people taking photographs in courts. And like I said, it is illegal, but usually it's dealt with a fine or something. But Mandy got jailed for that. And in my opinion, I'm not aware of any other cases of people being jailed for that. I'm sure people probably have if they've been harassing somebody or something like that. But in my opinion, that was completely politically motivated. She wasn't jailed for taking a photograph in the court. She was jailed for supporting people on our side of politics who were in court in a lot of cases for defending themselves. So it was absolutely disgusting. That was. I might do some, now that we've got all this AI stuff, I might do some research into this to try and find more cases of people being either jailed or fined for taking photos in court. But like I said, people have been fined for taking photographs in the actual courtroom while proceedings are going on, and they've just got a fine for it. And then Mandy got jailed for taking a posed photo of people who wanted their photo taken. There was no complaints from anyone in the photo. It was just a technicality. Technically, it is illegal. Although in British law, they're only supposed to prosecute or jail somebody if it's in the public interest. So just by breaking a law doesn't mean that you should be jailed or should be tried for it or have any sort of punishment, because there's not supposed to be such a thing as a victimless crime. People should only be prosecuted or charged or whatever if it's in the public interest, which in this case there's no public interest argument for it whatsoever. Just popped in, enjoyed your live streams. Please consider doing spaces so decent people can contribute and ask you anything. Yeah, I could do that. I'll look into that. Yeah, I'm not really sure at the moment, but yeah. You don't get your legal fees back if you're found not guilty. I'm not sure where that stands. I don't know if that's changed or if it's certain cases, but I think a lot of it probably depends on how much money you spend. If you've got all the top barristers, you probably won't get it back. I think it's down to the judge to award costs. I think that's part of the proceedings, or at least it used to be. This guy I'm talking about wasn't even allowed a smartphone. All he could use was an old-fashioned type mobile. He was told if he was caught online, he'd be held on remand. It's amazing that to be fair, it's amazing you can even sort of get non-smartphones. Although they probably still exist, because you get people there's certain high security places. You're allowed mobile phones, but you're not allowed camera phones and things like that. So I would have thought that there probably is still some demand for the old-fashioned type phone. But like I said, years ago it wouldn't have mattered that much. But nowadays it's such an inconvenience. He should try to get his bail conditions reduced, claiming they are oppressive. I think John said that he's in court. Did you say tomorrow, John, or did you say it's coming up soon anyway? So hopefully either the case will get resolved or the bail conditions could get sorted out there. But like I said, a lot of these either remand or bail conditions are designed to be the punishment. I know, again, talking back to Dover and other protests that happened around that time, a lot of people, because of their bail conditions, couldn't go on any protests. So I think that did sort of kill off a lot of the protests, that so many people who there was no real case against couldn't attend protests because of bail conditions. His solicitor was useless. He gave a very damning interview. First thing my solicitor advised is no comment interview. His clan let him give an interview. Never advised him. Yep, that does sound bad. I think when it comes to like no comment interviews, I think that depending on the case, there is a big difference. There is a big difference there, because I think I'm not a legal expert, but I think if you sort of rely on something in court and then you could have said it and didn't say it during an interview, I think that can sway it, where you've got less credibility for what you're later claiming in court. So it's not always a good idea just to give a no comment interview. But again, it depends on the case and what you're getting done for. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. last time I did it. Again, when I was working back in London, I would have been late for work, leaving at 7 a.m. I don't know. I assume if you can say you've got for employment, I suppose they can probably tweak it a bit to make it 6 a.m. or something rather than 7 a.m. And even the 7 p.m. all it takes is someone to jump in front of a train in London, and you're missing your 7 p.m. deadline as well. I'm going to be calling it a day now. Another reminder to everyone that PA have got their Warwick protest on the 7th of February. I think it's midday. I'll have to check up on that. I'll be going to that. I'll be doing a live stream again next week. I'll be in London by then, so it'll be a different surround. I'm around Shaz's apartment at the moment, so that's Shaz's spectacular wallpaper in the background. and I'll be roses and glitter. So I'll be back in London next week. So I'll be in a different surrounding again for that. So yeah, I'll still do the live stream. I'll probably be in London for a couple of weeks now, and I'll still be doing the live streams. So thanks very much for coming on board, everyone, and I look forward to seeing everyone or talking to everyone next week. It'll be the same time next Thursday at 7:30 for the live stream. Also, I'll put an edited version of this up as a podcast, so people can, if any, obviously people who've already watched this probably won't be too interested, but if anyone else wants to watch it, it's a shorter version. I take all the pauses out. It usually works out being about 20 or 25 minutes shorter than. Please like and subscribe, comment, and if you've got any ideas for any other videos, please let me know and I'll try and get something done. Thank you.